revealed. How an unexpected millionaire transformation at a wedding exposed hidden family secrets. Sarah stood at the edge of the reception hall, her heart a tangled web of envy and obligation. Starlight sparkled against the shimmering white satin of her sister's gown, a stark contrast to the faded scrubs she wore day in and day out. As laughter and music filled the air, she forced a smile while her mind raced with memories of hospital shifts and late-night family dinners, spent worrying over bills. In this moment, her sister's joy felt like a jagged rock in her throat, sweet yet suffocating. She watched as guests surrounded her sister, showering her with compliments, their eyes aglow with admiration. Each radiant laugh and twinkling eye seemed to shadow Sarah's years spent maintaining the delicate balance of their family's finances, supporting dreams that once sparkled but now lay forgotten in the recesses of her mind. She had run ragged keeping the household afloat, and now, instead of sharing in her sister's happiness, she sensed the weight of being the overlooked sister biting at her. Then, an unexpected figure walked in. Ethan. He exuded flair and sophistication, instantly drawing the attention of the gathering. Something in his confident stride piqued Sarah's curiosity. It wasn't just his charm. It was the subtle way he carried himself, as if he had a secret that could ignite fire in the hearts of those who listened. As their eyes locked across the room, Sarah felt an inexplicable tug. A connection that transcended the ornamental fineries of the affair. Drawn to his magnetic presence, she found herself near him moments later, and strained to listen as he spoke of a family legacy tied to an old theater, a ghost of a once vibrant part of their town's heart. The theater had been more than just a building. It was a repository of dreams, and he alluded to shadows of injustice that still echoed in the histories of their families. What happened to it was never right, he suggested, his tone both sorrowful and fervent. You should know, Sarah. The truth is tangled but must come out. Something needs to be done. Sarah's heart raced. Her family had exposed themselves time and again to the repercussions of buried secrets. Was it sacrilege to pursue justice when it would cause rifts in the fabric of her own family? In that electric moment, her own moral compass clashed starkly with her loyalty to those she loved. With each laugh shared from across the room, she felt her sister slipping away, a feeling of solidarity dissolving under the weight of ambition she had long abandoned. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The moment snapped back as Ethan delivered a heartfelt toast, his words cutting through the celebratory chatter like a knife. Sarah's connection to the old theater deserves recognition. A voice silenced long enough must be heard for healing to begin, he declared, sparking whispers and wide-eyed glances amongst the crowd. One gasp rang through her like an alarm. Shock coursed through her, each word striking a chord in her chest that reverberated with a sense of vulnerability and danger. Would she have to choose between her sister's happiness and the truth of a past that could shatter her family? Sarah's stomach twisted. Doubt gnawed at her resolve. The stakes were clear, yet the paths forward were obscured. As the tension tumbled like a wave against the shore, Sarah's mind spiraled. Loyalty or justice? Honor or truth? Each face turned toward her, eyes wide with inquiries that she wasn't prepared to answer. The decisions she faced pulsed heavier than the revelry around her, resonating with an urgency that threatened to consume not just her evening, but the entirety of the life she had meticulously crafted. The future loomed before her, a tempest of uncharted territory. Would she find the strength to unveil the truths lying buried? Or would she simply retreat into the shadows of obscurity, forever defined by duty? The applause that followed Ethan's toast rippled through the crowd. But for Sarah, there was no joy in the celebration. The cheering felt like a distant echo, drowned out by the tumult of emotions swirling within her. She should have been savoring the moment, celebrating her sister's union. But she felt stranded between a burgeoning sense of identity and the familial responsibilities that had chained her for too long. Her mind raced. Everyone was looking at her, but she didn't want their attention. How was she to respond to Ethan, to the haunting implications of his words? Each moment stretched painfully as she fought against the urge to flee the hall, to escape the web that was tightening around her. Even as she stood rooted in place, echoes of doubt began reverberating in her mind. Was her loyalty to her sister strong enough to silence her pursuit of truth? Ethan stepped closer, his presence cementing her next decision. "You understand what I mean, don't you?" he asked softly, leaning in just enough for his words to feel intimate. Her heart leapt at the care he held in his expression. It was a question that resonated, not only with the legacy of the theater, but with her own life. Could she grasp this opportunity? There was an unsettling clarity in the chaos surrounding her. Perhaps it was time to step out of her sister's shadow. "I'm torn," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then fight for yourself. The truth, Sarah, your passion. Those must matter more than fear." Ethan replied, his fervor flickering like candlelight, urging her to find her own flame. For the first time, Sarah glanced past the sea of guests, seeking solace outside the window. Moonlight bathed the barren street, illuminating the path that led away from the ornate wedding decor and into the unknown. An unfamiliar surge of courage settled in her chest. She had spent so long caring for others, hiding her aspirations, striving to keep things together for those she loved. Yet the notions of self-sacrifice and endless loyalty suddenly felt heavier than the burdens that had shaped her for years. As the evening wore on, shadows began to chase the daylight from the room, bringing with them a nervous energy that crackled in the air. Her sister appeared radiant, but the realization settled within her like cold stone. Her sister's happiness could not be the sole foundation of Sarah's existence. Drawing a deep breath, Sarah felt the first stirrings of ambition rekindle within her, a phoenix from the ashes of her guilt and obligation. Perhaps vulnerabilities could become strengths. Perhaps her voice mattered just as much as the applause that filled the reception hall. She felt the need to unearth the truth about the theater, to rally her own voice amidst the whispers of uncertainty. The conversations that surged around her blurred into the background as Sarah fixated on Ethan. Could he be an ally in the journey that lay ahead? The notion sent shivers down her spine. Adventure or trepidation? Each option seemed to carry the weight of a reckoning she had long evaded. "I need to know. What did you mean about the theater?" she finally asked, the words rushing forth as the knot in her stomach tightened with anticipation. His smile deepened. "There's more to discover than what our families have allowed us to see. I can help you unveil it." In that moment, the tentative bond between them crackled with potential. For the first time in years, Sarah felt the stirrings of purpose, an unflinching resolve taking root amidst her anxiety. Perhaps this was her chance to reclaim her voice, to ignite the truth that lay dormant within her. But as she took a step forward, she realized that every decision carried its weight. A sense of foreboding crept in, an awareness that her path would not be an easy one. The moment of truth loomed larger than she'd anticipated, confronting her family's legacies while seeking her authentic self. "Be ready," Sarah whispered to herself in the depths of her mind. The real journey is just beginning. As she prepared to embrace this new chapter, she felt the air shift, charged with the intensity of choices yet to come. What secrets awaited her in the depths of past decisions? Would she truly have the courage to challenge her family's norms, or would fear entangle her once more? The following morning, the sun broke through her bedroom window, casting a warm glow that felt almost foreign against her newfound resolve. Sarah sat up, her heart racing with thoughts of the previous night. The wedding, brimming with laughter and joy, had marked a turning point, and she understood now that her journey toward self-discovery had begun in earnest. Her phone buzzed next to her, and she reluctantly reached for it. It was a text from Ethan, brief yet promising. "Let's meet later. I have something to show you about the theater." The words filled her with a combination of delight and trepidation. This was her chance to unravel the threads of her family's complex history, but it also meant stepping further into uncharted waters. As she prepared for the day, she couldn't shake the nagging thought of responsibility. Would her family, particularly her sister, understand her quest? Did obligations to those she loved outweigh her right to seek her own truth? The familiar pang of guilt gripped her, but this time, beneath it bubbled a determination she hadn't known she possessed. Her work as an administrative assistant had always been a steady foundation, yet it felt stifling now. The monotony of arranging papers and answering phones paled in comparison to the roaring desire to create and to discover. She needed to dive deeper into the world she had long admired from the sidelines, and the theater represented that vivid possibility. At lunch, she sat in a near-empty cafe, tracing the rim of her cup while contemplating what lay ahead. Around her, people chatted animatedly, engrossed in their conversations. She longed to join them, to share her thoughts on daring dreams. But her narrative had been dictated by others for so long. So, as she sipped her coffee, her mind drifted to the theater, its looming mysteries beckoning her. What did Ethan truly know? Was he merely a guide on this path, or did he have a stake in its secrets too? Sarah's questions deepened, propelling her forward as she recognized this meeting could be pivotal. The hours dragged until finally, it was time to meet Ethan. She felt something akin to excitement wrapped in anxiety. The world outside buzzed with energy as she navigated the streets toward their designated meeting place. Each step clung to her with potential, but also the heaviness of what lay ahead. Ethan was waiting for her at an unassuming entrance to the theater, his expression mirroring her own turmoil. "You made it," he said, his eyes bright with purpose. "I had to know more," she replied, her voice steady yet breathless with anticipation. They walked through the dimly lit foyer, the theater's history whispering through the walls. As they moved deeper inside, Ethan revealed old photographs tucked in a tattered album, the faces of past actors frozen in time, their stories merging with hers. "This is just the beginning," he said, running his fingers lightly over the faded images. "These people fought for their voices in a time when that wasn't easy." Sarah absorbed each word. Each photograph represented resilience, illuminating possibilities buried under layers of her family's expectations. "Can we really change our stories?" she asked, testing the idea that perhaps she could unearth her own narrative. Ethan caught her gaze, and the weight of his response lingered in the air. "You have to be ready to confront uncomfortable truths. Change doesn't come without facing the past head-on." Determined to push forward, Sarah nodded, the gravity of his words igniting a fire within her. Perhaps the battle wasn't just against the family norms she'd been bound to, but also within herself. Could she truly harness the courage to reconcile her past with her aspirations? Ethan smiled slightly, sensing her resolve. "Let's dive deeper. There are stories about this theater you haven't heard. Secrets that could change everything for you." As they continued to explore the rich tapestry of narratives within the theater, excitement collided with fear inside Sarah. The deeper they delved, the clearer it became that her family's legacy was intricately woven into her identity. Amidst the thrill, doubt crept in again. Was she ready to confront the challenges that lay ahead? To challenge the very foundation of her family? The stakes were rising, and Sarah felt the weight of her decision bearing down. The moment of reckoning loomed. The thrill of new discoveries was intoxicating. But what lay at the end of this path? Would the truth she uncovered help reclaim her lost voice? Or would they entangle her deeper into familial obligations? With each step forward, she felt the pulse of her ambitions, and the echoes of the past grew louder. She cast one last glance around the theater, the weight of potential settling heavily on her shoulders. "Are you ready for what's next?" Ethan's voice broke through her contemplation, a challenge hanging delicately in the air. Sarah took a deep breath, a mix of fear and exhilaration coursing through her. "Only if you're ready to show me everything." As anticipation thickened, the walls of the theater seemed to pulse with life, a heartbeat of the stories held within. What revelations awaited them? And were they prepared to face the truth that lay hidden, even if it meant unraveling the bond that had tethered her to her family for so long? The theater's air was thick with the scent of aged wood and lingering memories. As they stepped into the main stage area, the light dimmed, heavily reminding Sarah of the shadows waiting to be revealed. Spotlights hung above, dormant, yet electrifying. She felt they were poised to unearth her buried ambitions. "Let me show you some of the more personal stories," Ethan said, his voice soft yet urgent. "These aren't just photos or scripts. They contain pieces of the past that could resonate with your own." With each passing moment, Sarah felt a low hum coursing through her veins, both exhilarating and daunting. "You speak as if they're alive," she observed, her skepticism tempered by intrigue. "They are, in a sense," he replied, moving towards an old trunk. "Stories persist. Each actor that stepped on this stage left behind an echo, and some might even connect to the life you've lived." Her heart quickened, pounding against the weight of her revelation. She found herself pacing the worn floorboards, the life she had known clawing back into her consciousness as doubt tightened its grip. Was she prepared for the intricacies of her family's history? Would those connections enrich her, or complicate her path toward finding her own voice? Ethan pulled out several slips of paper, worn and delicate, revealing snippets of personal letters and journal entries. "These are letters penned by a playwright who faced immense adversity. He fought against norms of his time. You'll notice some similarities." As she studied the faded ink, a swell of understanding washed over her. The playwright's journey resonated. He too had wrestled with familial expectations while pursuing his passion. Could this alignment be a sign that her path was meant to align similarly? Or merely an echo of what could feel like a curse? What if it's too personal? Sarah voiced her raw hesitation. What if my family doesn't want me to uncover these truths? What if they want to keep locked away everything that makes us uncomfortable? The fear that her quest might invoke familial turmoil rattled her. "Then you face a choice," Ethan said, leaning closer, his gaze steady. "Do you continue to live in the shadows cast by your family's expectations? Or do you step onto the stage of your own life, claiming what is yours?" His question hung in the air, laden with significance. Sarah's mind raced. The internal debates she had pushed aside surged to the forefront. Freedom versus loyalty, truth versus conformity. What would it mean to step onto her own stage, to embrace discomfort? She envisioned her sister's reaction. Would there be anger or understanding? The thoughts spiraled, adding layers to her internal conflict. But as the weight pressed inward, the flicker of her earlier resolve began to burn brighter. "I want to dig deeper," she said, finally reclaiming her control. The commitment surged like a current driving her forward. "But I'll need your help to confront them, to make sense of this." Ethan's face lit up. "That's the spirit. Change requires courage, and you've shown that today. Let's put these pieces together." As they continued to sift through the fragments of the past, Sarah began to see the looming transition into her future. The more they uncovered, the more they tied her to the stories previously hidden. Hidden talents began to bubble up within her as she articulated thoughts aloud. With each new piece, Sarah felt a burgeoning sense of empowerment. She realized that exploring these narratives wasn't simply concerning her family, but also about tapping into her own creativity. The writers, the actors, they all fought for their narratives, and now she too could fight for hers. Yet gnawing doubts persisted. What if confronting these truths would fracture her family, the very foundation she'd built her life upon? But to live in fear was to deny herself the chance to flourish. "Are you ready for the next step?" Ethan asked, breaking her from her spiral of doubts. "To truly reveal what's been hidden, we have to face the family first," she replied, newfound determination lacing her words. They turned toward the unassuming door behind the stage, a threshold to a world of revelations. Every instinct in her shouted for caution, but alongside it pulsed an undeniable craving for truth. With one last glance back at the stage, a pulsing heartbeat of shared stories and hidden fears, Sarah realized she was ready to confront the truths that lay ahead. What awaited her beyond that door loomed ahead like the bright, blinding light of a spotlight. Would she find resolution, or would it expose wounds too raw to handle? The answers were a mere step away, and she was resolved to take it. "Ethan, let's go." Little did she realize, she was on the brink of a life-altering confrontation that would either anchor her to the past or launch her into the life she'd always hoped for. As the door creaked open, a wave of memories surged forth, melding anticipation with trepidation in Sarah's chest. The dingy hallway revealed the dimly lit corners of the theater that had been long left to languish, reminders of performances and stories that had been shared. Each step felt heavy, yet electrified, the past and present colliding in the shadowy confines surrounding her. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Ethan asked, his voice a soft anchor in her tumultuous thoughts. "I have to," Sarah replied. Determination laced through her words as she guided him deeper down the hall. "I need to understand where I came from. It'll help me find my voice." They paused before the dressing room door, whose chipped paint told tales of a different era. This room, a repository of secrets, felt like a portal into her family's repressed history. She inhaled sharply, stoking her resolve. What truths awaited her inside? What identities were locked away, begging for exposure? Ethan nodded encouragingly, his presence lending strength. With a deep breath, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. The light flickered awkwardly, bathing the room in an ethereal glow that contrasted sharply with the weight of what she might discover. Inside, the dressing table was littered with old makeup, photographs of past performances, and handwritten notes. Fragments from lives long past that still emitted a vibrancy she craved. As she sifted through the remnants, Sarah's fingers brushed against a crumpled letter, and her heart dropped. Unfolding it, she soon realized it was a letter addressed to her mother, penned in a familiar, careful script. "Love is not a cage, but a key," it began, each word echoing her own struggles with familial obligations. She scanned ahead, drawn in by the emotional weight of the author's hopes, dreams, and the desperation for freedom. This was more than a letter. It was a lifeline reaching across generations. And in that moment, the invisible thread connecting her heart to her family's past tightened and glowed. "What does it say?" Ethan asked, his eyes locked onto her face, watching for any flicker of surprise or recognition. "It's from someone who felt the same way I do," Sarah whispered, the realization setting in. Someone who craved more than what was expected. Her voice wavered, the connection alive within her. Ethan gestured toward the photographs tacked on the wall. Families with smiling faces, actors mid-performance, all caught in moments that spoke of both joy and pain. "These stories are not just theirs. They are pieces of you, too," he reminded her. They survive, compelling you to engage, to speak. She felt a swell of courage wash over her, electrifying her thoughts. I've always felt an obligation to keep everything harmonious, she admitted, reflecting on how long she had silenced her voice for the sake of peace. But how can I create my path if I don't understand this? By embracing these stories, allowing them to be part of your narrative rather than chains binding you, he countered, his voice steady with conviction. As Sarah continued to explore the dressing room, a hidden drawer caught her eye. Pulling it out, she discovered a journal, its cover worn and imbued with unspoken histories. Flipping it open, she felt a connection with the past surge through her. The entry spoke of longing, dreams, and the fear of familial rejection. With every page she absorbed, she unearthed truths about herself that had long been buried under layers of expectation. She was not just the daughter of her family. She was an artist with dreams echoing through her bloodline. The weight of self-doubt lifted ever so slightly. Ethan, I can't deny this any longer. I'm done letting fear dictate my choices, she said, her voice brimming with resolve. I will confront them all. Ethan's face lit with pride. That's the spirit. You must find your voice, even if it means stirring up the past. That's how you take ownership of your story. As they prepared to leave the dressing room, Sarah felt an unfamiliar exhilaration surge inside her. The journey that lay ahead loomed vast and daunting, but with every step taken today, she could sense the flickers of her artistry blossoming. She was no longer a mere daughter tethered to her family's expectations. She was an artist ready to reclaim her narrative. Let's go find them, she announced, voice steadied as she clutched the journal tightly. The confrontation that awaited her was imminent, yet something unfathomable urged her forward. What awaited her would demand not only courage, but also the willingness to leave behind the remnants of a life dictated by fear. Would she discover the truth she needed to break free? Or would those she loved resist her awakening? With that thought, she stepped onto the stage of her own making, the world ahead a blank canvas ready for her brush. Time to take the next step, she whispered, and the future echoed back, alive with possibility. As Sarah stood at the threshold of the dressing room, clutching the journal with its fragile pages, telling the stories of the past, a new resolve coursed within her. She was no longer just a spectator in her own existence. She was an active participant, ready to confront the narratives that had long constrained her. Ethan, perceptive as ever, sensed the shift in her demeanor. "What's next?" he asked, drawing her focus away from the clutter of memories and toward the path ahead, both literal and metaphorical. "I need to talk to my parents tonight," she replied, her voice steadying with the weight of realization. The thought alone felt monumental, like a boulder shifting within her. It would be a confrontation ignited by the past, but aimed purely at her future. "Tonight?" Ethan echoed, eyebrows raised. "That's ambitious. Are you ready for that?" "Am I ever ready?" she countered, a soft smile breaking through the tension. "But I have to try. I can't keep letting my fear dictate my choices." Determination ignited a fire inside her, and she envisioned the evening unfolding. Each second that passed filled her with both anticipation and dread, the duality of apprehension and excitement overwhelming, yet inspiring. As they exited the theater, the late afternoon sun bathed the streets in an amber glow, contrasting with the shadowy corners of her childhood memories. She felt the vibrant energy of the city pulsating around her, a stark reminder of life continuing in the present while she navigated the complexities of her past. "What are you planning to say?" Ethan asked, falling into step beside her. "I don't know. Honestly," she admitted, wrestling with the intricacies of what had been left unspoken. "But I want to express myself fully. I need to be honest about my feelings, about my passions." Ethan nodded. That's a solid start. Remember, it's not just about confronting them. It's about standing your ground. They might react defensively. That notion echoed in her mind, mingling with the butterfly-like flutters in her stomach. Her parents had always undertaken a protective role, shaping the narrative of her life around their beliefs, rather than allowing her to explore her identity freely. What if they don't understand? She pondered aloud, guilt creeping back in like an unwelcome visitor. Or what if they do? Ethan replied, his voice steady. Sometimes, revealing your truth opens doors you never knew existed. The conversation meandered, weaving through thoughts of hope and fear, the images of her parents flickering in her mind like a film reel of cherished moments, soon veiled by doubt. She found herself envisioning their faces, the surprise and indignation she might encounter, and felt an unsettling churn brewing within her. The idea of conflict unnerved her, but she steeled herself, recognizing that this was critical for her evolution. Arriving at her parents' house, the familiar facade loomed before her like a fortification of the past. The door felt heavy in her hand. It was no longer just an entryway. It was a barrier holding back years of unvoiced desires and unlearned acceptance. "Do you want me to come in with you?" Ethan offered, understanding her growing apprehension. "No. This is something I need to do alone," she replied. Her voice resounded with newfound authority. As poised as she could muster, she lifted her chin, shaking off the remnants of childhood insecurities. She had her journal, her truths, and the knowledge that to embrace her artistry, she had to seek freedom in authenticity. The moment she rang the doorbell, a storm of emotions threatened to reverse her progress. Her heart pounded as her mother opened the door, and she caught a flutter of apprehension across her mother's face. The familiar love was intertwined with confusion, and what she feared might become disappointment. "Sarah, what brings you here?" her mother asked, echoing the same warmth that had enveloped her as a child, stoking the fear that this reunion might establish a line that never crossed into her newfound resolve. "I need to talk to you guys," she started, her voice unwavering. The past threatened to drown her, yet something genuine within urged her to dive deeper. "What's on your mind?" Her father's voice emerged from the living room, concern lacing every syllable. "I need to share my truth, and I hope you'll listen." With that proclamation, Sarah realized she was standing at the crossroads of fear and liberating honesty. The weight of her hidden desires hung palpably in the air between them, yet she breathed out, engaging every ounce of courage she had mustered. As the conversation unfolded, she yearned to articulate her struggle for acceptance, her aspirations, her artistry that resonated with every piece of the past she had uncovered. Her parents exchanged wary glances, gauging the intensity of her revelations. Would they embrace this journey of mutual understanding, or grapple with the reality of the rend in the fabric of their family narrative? A single moment looped in her mind. Would tonight solidify her identity, or dissolve into silence? The answer lay hidden in the depth of the ensuing dialogue, waiting to be unraveled. The air thickened with tension as Sarah's words hung between her and her parents. Her mother's eyes widened, clearly unprepared for this moment of vulnerability. "Your truth?" she murmured, her voice a blend of intrigue and apprehension. "Yes," Sarah pressed on, feeling the steady drum of her heartbeat against the rising tide of doubt. "I want to pursue my passion for art, and She hesitated, afraid of what might come next, yet determined to push through. "I can't keep pretending to be someone I'm not. I want to express who I am in my work." Her father shifted in his seat, the silence amplifying the unanticipated reality of the conversation. "What does that mean for your future? Your education? Your career?" he probed, the protective undertones crackling in his tone. Instead of drawing back, Sarah leaned in. "It means I need to embrace my creativity. I've spent so long conforming to what you both expected of me. I've been miserable trying to fit into a mold that doesn't reflect who I am," she declared, an unfamiliar strength surging through her. "But Sarah, you have a chance for stability, for success," her mother interjected, her voice now tinged with desperation. "Art it's a gamble. You could be risking everything." "Everything?" Sarah echoed, her voice more resonant than it had ever felt before. "I've already been losing everything by denying myself. The more I ignore my passion, the more I feel trapped in a life that isn't mine. I have to take this chance." With every word, Sarah felt layers of fear begin to peel away. This was a confrontation she had played out in her mind countless times, but never had she grasped the reins of her narrative so firmly. Each reaction from her parents tested her resolve, forging a more resilient version of herself. Her mother's face fell. "We just want what's best for you. And what if what's best isn't what I want?" Sarah countered, a fire ignited within. "What if I want to embrace the uncertainty and discover who I am through my art? This is my life we're discussing, not yours." The strength of her own voice caught her off guard. She was unearthing a depth of conviction she hadn't known she possessed. And although the fear lingered, it was outweighed by the sense of liberation beginning to take root. "So, what? You just expect us to accept this?" Her father's skepticism cut through the moment, but Sarah stood her ground, the steadiness of her breathing anchoring her. "Yes, I need your support. But more than that, I need you to understand that this journey is mine to take, not dictated by your fears of what may happen." As the conversation rolled forward, ebbing and flowing in complexity, she unearthed the tangled history of her family's narratives, her mother's sacrifices, her father's ambitions, their collective dreams for her. Each acknowledgement transformed the initial disappointment and skepticism into an unexpected vulnerability, a bridge between their past and her future. There were moments of silence where everything hung, allowing Sarah to assess the shifting landscape of their relationships. The contours of connection morphed amidst the emotional stakes, revealing hidden dimensions of love and fear. Just as she began to sense a gradual thawing, her mother spoke. "But Sarah, what if you fail?" "Honestly?" "I'm more afraid of not trying," Sarah replied, echoing the passion that now coursed through her veins. Her certainty carved paths through the fear, illuminating the myriad possibilities ahead. "I have to take this risk, and I hope you'll choose to support me." The resolution in her voice infused the air with more than just tension. It brimmed with possibility. Yet beneath that exhilarating decision was a nagging thread of doubt, a question she had yet to confront. Could they truly see her vision for herself? Or was she simply scrambling for approval in a discussion that had already reshaped their family dynamics? As their discourse turned toward the practicalities of her aspirations, with her parents tentatively offering alternative viewpoints, Sarah, grappling with hope and apprehension, realized she was at the edge of a precipice. She had faced the fear of her past, yet now, the challenge lay ahead. What awaited her once the dust settled? Could she truly navigate the transition from the woman they had known to the artist she aspired to be? The questions loomed, powerful enough to tilt the trajectory of her life. And as she sensed her parents slowly adapting to her truth, a flicker of excitement ignited. The path felt murky, but she now had the courage to chase the light beyond. As they stepped into the dialogue of possibility, was she truly prepared for the next wave of revelations that awaited, both from her parents and within herself? The days following the pivotal conversation unfolded with a curious mix of exhilaration and trepidation. Sarah awoke each day not only with the weight of her choice to pursue art, but also with a burgeoning sense of self, a self she had long kept hidden. Each brushstroke she practiced in her dimly lit studio felt more like a reclaiming of her spirit than merely an exercise in creativity. In the hours she spent sketching, She discovered more than just shapes and colors. She was exploring the contours of her identity. Those chaotic swirls of paint mirrored the internal chaos she felt, but within that turbulence lay a spark of clarity. Artistic expression became her refuge, a place where she could confront her fears about rejection and failure head-on. Each piece she completed drew her closer to the notion that her worth wasn't tethered to external approval. Yet, the comfort of her new routine collided with the reality of her parents' reactions. While they had remained more open than she expected, their subtle skepticism lingered, a shadow hovering in every conversation. Each time they casually mentioned a stable job offer or a seminar on business management, it felt like a gentle nudge back towards the path they had envisioned for her. She couldn't help but question whether they viewed her newfound passion as merely an adorable phase. Determined to fortify her resolve, Sarah sought out mentorship. She attended local art workshops and connected with established artists who not only shared their experiences, but also offered encouragement she hadn't anticipated. These interactions deepened her understanding of the art world and taunted her with its uncertainties. She witnessed the struggle and triumph of others, which served as a haunting reminder of the fine line between success and failure. The stories echoed her own fears and ignited her determination. One particular mentor, a grizzled artist named Marla, became an unexpected guiding force. During their sessions, Marla dissected Sarah's paintings, drawing out not only what was visible on the canvas, but also what lay beneath. "Art is just as much about you as it is about the work," she'd say, her voice thick with earnestness. "Your doubts, your triumphs, they all bleed into what you create." For Sarah, this revelation struck a chord, igniting another layer of courage within. With each brushstroke, she began to weave her family's expectations into her art. Instead of feeling trapped by their beliefs, she repurposed them as inspiration. A canvas evolved into a battleground of conflicting narratives, the weight of parental approval, the embrace of her passion, and the inevitable cracks of self-doubt. But as she unraveled the strands of her familial narrative, a new challenge emerged. The art community was riddled with competition, and the reality of making a living as an artist dawned on her. Could her passion pay the bills that lined her existence? She understood intimately that her journey was not without risk. The question surfaced like a persistent itch. How far was she willing to go, and what sacrifices were necessary for her newfound path? The more she immersed herself in her art, the more she felt her identity solidifying into something resilient. Her reputation began to grow locally. Small exhibitions showcased her work and drew attention from friends and even strangers. The thrill of showing her art was intoxicating, yet the echoes of her parents' concerns loomed larger. Each success felt incomplete without their unequivocal support. One night, Sarah found herself staring at her latest piece, an abstract self-portrait swirling with emotion and uncertainty. This was her burst of confidence. Every brushstroke echoed her struggle, but also her resolve. However, beneath that pride simmered a lingering tension. How would they react when they saw not only her artwork, but the deeper revelation of her journey? Just then, a ping from her phone broke her concentration. An invitation to participate in a more significant exhibition shimmered on the screen. This was the opportunity she'd been waiting for, a moment that could alter not only her career, but also the trajectory of her journey toward authenticity. Suddenly, she was thrust between elation and apprehension. Would this be the moment she presented her truth to her parents in full force? Or was it a step too far, placing herself at the mercy of their judgment once again? A wave of anxiety hit her, replacing the thrill of potential with a deep-seated fear. The time came to decide whether she would embrace this chance. Would she risk it all and face the monumental shift in her relationships? As she weighed her options, the colors on her palette seemed to whisper possibilities, each hue alive with the contrast of hope and doubt. The realization struck her. She had the power to shape her narrative. But would she seize it? The decision loomed like a storm on the horizon, ready to unleash its ferocity. Would she take the plunge and reveal her burgeoning identity to the world, along with the familial connections that had shaped her? This was not merely about an exhibition. It was a pivotal moment that could redefine everything she had fought for. Her heart raced as she stood at the precipice of choice, feeling the potentiality of a life rebuilt in her hands, her ultimate revelation within reach. With the stakes at their highest, she recognized that her journey was far from over. It was merely beginning. What awaited her on the other side of that decision? Would she emerge victorious or shattered? The moment Sarah's finger hovered over the screen, she felt a pulse of energy rush through her, each heartbeat echoing the weight of the choice before her. Accept the invitation or shy away. This mundane action had morphed into a defining moment of her life. The gallery represented not just walls lined with her art, but an arena for her truth. A stage for the story that had begun with tentative strokes, and now demanded recognition. Without thinking, her thumb pressed, "Accept." A jolt of adrenaline surged within her. The decision had been made. Yet with that surge came a host of familiar fears. The unease of vulnerability, the apprehension of exposure. Doubts fought to reassert power. What if the work was dismissed? What if her parents' disapproval intensified? The colorful configurations of hope began to twist into shadows of anxiety. As days turned into a flurry leading up to the exhibition, Sarah dedicated every waking moment to perfecting her pieces. The gallery loomed large in her mind, a place where she'd face the scrutiny of strangers and, ultimately, her family. Each artwork transformed with her touch, reflecting layers of herself she had painstakingly learned to embrace. Yet with every stroke, the dialogue in her head oscillated between encouragement and discouragement. She struggled against the flickering flashlight of self-doubt that threatened to spotlight her insecurities. Amidst those clattering thoughts, her mentor Marla reached out. "Remember, Sarah," she had said, her voice a comforting clarity amidst the chaos. "This is your platform. You're not just showcasing art. You're laying bare your journey. Own it." Those words lingered with her, a guiding light in the storm, transforming her fears into a form of empowerment. On the night of the exhibition, she stood among her pieces, myriad reflections illuminating the emotional contradictions within her. The gallery buzzed with excitement, lively chatter mingling with soft instrumental music that echoed off the polished walls. As patrons moved from one artwork to another, Sarah felt tethered to her canvases, each piece an extension of her very soul. And then her parents arrived. The initial flash of joy provided little comfort, for she could perceive their uncertainty immediately. As they surveyed the texture of her work, the raw emotions laid bare, their mixed expressions unspooled threads of her internal narrative. They stood apart, their skepticism hovering just out of reach, and it pierced her more keenly than any criticism from strangers. Taking a deep breath, Sarah approached them, each step a battleground of conflicting emotions. "What do you think?" she asked, a note of vulnerability creeping into her voice. Her mother's eyes searched the canvases, finally landing on her daughter's bold self-portrait. "It's different," she replied carefully, the pause laden with unspoken apprehension. "Are you all right?" her father interjected, a shadow of concern clouding his face. The familiar pang of inadequacy rose within her, squeezing her heart. Here she was, surrounded by the validation of strangers, yet the prospect of her parents' approval remained her weighted anchor. Was her life truly to swing on the pendulum of their acceptance? "What if different is good?" Sarah countered, her own defiance surprising her. "This is me, without the filters." Their eyes widened, Michelle's expression shifting under the weight of her daughter's words. It was a small victory, but it felt as though a slight crack had formed in the wall of skepticism. As the night deepened and the conversations grew more animated, Sarah began to engage others in earnest. Friends, fellow artists, and admirers shared encounters with her work at a level she had never expected. Each compliment and personal story connected to her art bolstered her confidence. Yet, a lingering apprehension taunted her like a recurring nightmare. Would her success fracture the familial ties she so desperately sought to strengthen? The night wore on, and the conversations shifted to the future. Her future, much to her surprise. An art critic approached, admiring her self-portrait and suggesting it could mark her entry into a more prestigious network of artists. Her heart raced. They weren't merely validating her work. They were offering paths she'd only dreamed of before. But amidst this flurry of recognition, there lay an unsettling undercurrent. Would this success shift the balance within her family, exacerbating the fears that had rooted years prior? As the gallery began to clear, and patrons trickled out, Sarah felt the familiar tension knotting her stomach. Was she ready to face what this new change might reveal? Just as she thought she had grasped the controls of her own narrative, another wave of uncertainty crashed over her. The evening had ignited a potential for transformation. But at what cost? With her parents remaining largely silent, lingering shadows of doubt seeped back in. This journey could redefine her independence, yet it felt precariously interwoven with the familial approval she craved. As she stood contemplating the evening's successes and apprehensions, the question loomed larger than ever. Was she ready to fully embrace this newfound freedom, even if it meant challenging her family's expectations? In the reflective silence of the now empty gallery, Sarah resolved to confront her parents. This was the only way forward. The edge of vulnerability flickered before her, daring her to step beyond the fear. The moment demanded action. The call for truth awaited. Would she summon the courage needed to bridge the gap between the woman she had become and the family that had shaped her? That confrontation beckoned on the horizon, holding both the promise of liberation and the risk of rupture. A decisive revelation that would determine her path forward. The air thickened with anticipation as Sarah found herself standing before her parents once more. The gallery now a ghostly echo of laughter and vibrant applause. The dimmed lights cast soft shadows around them, heightening the moment's gravity. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice steady yet laced with a tremor of determination. Her parents exchanged glances, the weight of the evening's unspoken thoughts hovering between them. "Sure, sweetheart," her mother replied, concern etched into her brow. They stepped into a secluded corner of the gallery, where the art on the walls could offer a glimpse of her heart without the need for words. It was time to articulate the feelings that had brewed within her since that first conversation about pursuing her passion. "I want to thank you for supporting this exhibition," she began, her voice imbued with sincerity. "It means more than I can express." Her mother smiled tentatively, a flicker of pride shining through their earlier skepticism. Her father maintained his serious demeanor, the depths of his worries undulating beneath the surface, ready to erupt. "I know this has been a journey for all of us," Sarah continued, heart racing but resolve unwavering. "But I want you to know I'm committed to my art. I felt more alive and expressive these past few weeks than I ever have in a long time." She took a breath, releasing the tension coiling in her chest. "But what about stability?" her father interjected, an argument simmering just beneath concern. "Art can be fickle, you know this. There's real-life pressure that comes with pursuing it." "Yes, and I understand that," Sarah replied, her tone confident. "But pursuing my dreams, my passion, is also part of what makes me capable of handling those pressures. I want to build a life that I design, one that reflects who I truly am." The silence that followed hung heavy, yet it was a moment to heal. And for the first time, Sarah felt as if she were confronting a shared challenge, rather than standing alone on a desolate island. Her mother finally spoke, voice softening with an unexpected warmth. "But what if you fail? We just worry for you, sweetie. Failure's part of life, Mom. I've seen what it can do to people, how it can become a stepping stone. Sarah responded, her eyes locking onto her mother's. But I can't let fear dictate my choices anymore. Taking this plunge, this risk, has already brought me so much potential, both personally and professionally. Her parents fell silent, absorbing what she was saying. As she spoke, she found herself voicing feelings long buried. It's hard for me to see you take this leap, not knowing where it will lead. Her father finally admitted, his voice tinged with vulnerability. It's difficult not to want to protect you. I know, Dad, and I appreciate that, she said, instantly feeling the bond tightening between them rather than fraying. But I need to explore who I am with my own choices, even if they're uncertain. I am not the little girl you once knew. I'm forging my own identity while building on the foundation you've given me. The initial discomfort began to lift, revealing the love beneath, tangled in paternal instincts and maternal care. Her mother reached out, taking Sarah's hands in hers. We just want you to be safe, to have a future. That's what it means to be family. I understand. Sarah nodded, locks of uncertainty beginning to loosen. And this is why I want to include you in my journey. I want you by my side as I navigate this chaotic, beautiful path. Your support means the world to me. Her vulnerability hung in the air. A transformative recognition of her past, stifled expectations and present ambitions. In that silent exchange, her parents exchanged another glance. A softening began to settle in their hearts, not as an acceptance of an easy solution, but as a profound understanding to stand together amid uncertainty. Slowly her father spoke, words wrapped in care. We'll always support you in whatever path you take, Sarah. We want you to succeed, and to create a life you love. Tears threatened to emerge, but along with them came strength. Sarah squeezed her mother's hands and met her father's gaze, feeling the culmination of their conversations wrapping around them like a warm embrace. Both a recognition of shared love, and the acknowledgement of differing dreams. I believe in your potential, her mother whispered, eyes shimmering with an appreciation that felt profoundly validating. Show us what you can do. At that moment, Sarah felt the most significant weight lift from her shoulders. They might not fully understand the artistic world she inhabited, but having their tentative blessing felt monumental. Thank you, she replied, her voice steady, yet softened with emotion. Being an artist is about exploration, learning, creating, and sometimes failing. But now, I know I don't have to do it alone. As they stepped from the gallery into the cool evening air, the uncertainty of the journey that lay ahead took on a different shape. For the first time, Sarah felt an exhilarating blend of anxiety and strength. The colors of her future stretched infinitely like a canvas, brimming with potential, where each stroke would tell her story of resilience and courage. Through embracing her identity, she had drawn her family closer, transforming an evening of apprehension into an oath of mutual support. They would undergo this transformation together, an evolution fueled by love and understanding. As they walked together down the moonlit street, leaving the gallery behind, Sarah felt recognized and empowered, with her heart swelling at a newfound sense of belonging. It was finally time to embark on the uncharted chapters of her life, much like the emerging artist she was destined to become. The future gleamed before her, promising to be bright and true. This was the moment Sarah had long awaited, a powerful awakening to her authentic self, a commitment to navigate her own path. And with that, she was both a daughter and an artist ready to embrace the world. Don't let your journey remain uncertain. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire your own transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and ensure that more stories like this reach those who need them. Comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's journey and your own turning points. Your insights matter. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who are navigating their own paths and need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Your engagement can help countless others find their own courage to overcome.